I built a startup worth $100 million. Today I sleep in my mom's basement. My name is Thomas. I'm 37, a founder, and I brush my teeth at a gas station sink now. 3 years ago, I had business cards with raised letters and a car I couldn't really afford. People ask how someone goes from board meetings to parking lots. It didn't start with failure. It started with a handshake and numbers that looked like winning. I convinced 43 people to trust me with their money. I told myself the math would fix itself if we just grew faster. It didn't. Wins made me confident. Losses made me lie. The slope looked gentle until I was falling. Rent stopped getting paid. Sleep stopped happening at home. My voice got quiet on investor calls. I kept saying, "We're stabilizing," when we weren't. Let me start at the breakfast where I shook hands with millions. And the night, I ran an extension cord through my car window to charge my phone. When ambition won't let you admit the truth, what breaks first? Your company or your life? I met Marcus Chun at a venture capital breakfast in Palo Alto on a Tuesday morning in April 2021. The kind of breakfast where the coffee costs $12 and comes in white ceramic cups without handles. Everything in that room was designed to look effortless. The exposed brick, the reclaimed wood tables, the potted fiddle leaf figs in the corners. Even the people looked curated. I was 34 years old and wearing a navy blazer I'd bought specifically for meetings like this. My business cards were in my pocket, the expensive kind with raised lettering you could feel with your thumb. Marcus was 29, but carried himself older. Wharton MBA, second-generation money. The kind of guy who said family office without explaining what that meant because he assumed you already knew. His father had built a real estate empire across 3 states. Marcus was trying to build something separate, something that would make people say his name without thinking of his dad first. I understood that. I'd spent my whole life trying to be someone my hometown wouldn't recognize that we shook hands across a table near the window. His grip was firm but not aggressive. He'd read the deck I'd sent. I could tell because he opened with a question about slide 14, the one about fraud prevention. Most investors skipped straight to the revenue projections. "Walk me through the unit economics again," he said. "You're advancing wages same day, but the fees are capped at what? 3%? 2.9, I said. "We eat the processing costs to stay competitive. So you're losing money on every transaction. In the short term. But once we hit scale, 5 million users, 10 million, the network effects kick in. Employers start paying us for the integration. That's where the margin lives." He nodded slowly, the way people do when they're thinking about whether to believe you. I'd given this pitch 40 times. I knew which words to stress, where to pause, when to lean forward. I believed it when I said it. That was the trick. You had to believe it first, or nobody else would. Marcus asked about churn rates, customer acquisition costs, competitive moat. I had answers for all of it. Good answers, the kind that sounded like data even when they were mostly optimism. The truth was our unit economics were a polite fiction, the kind of fiction every early-stage startup tells itself. We were burning $1.10 for every dollar we advanced, and the path to profitability required us to grow faster than we were losing money. It was a race, and I'd convinced myself we were winning. "I like it," Marcus said finally. "The market's real. Gig workers are underserved. If you can crack the fraud problem and the margins, this could be big." If. That word should have felt heavier than it did. We shook hands again at the end. He took one of my business cards, ran his thumb over the raised letters, slipped it into his wallet. I watched him do it and felt something close to victory. 6 months later, his family office led our Series C, $38 million at a $420 million valuation. The term sheet came through on a Thursday afternoon in October. I was in the office, open floor plan, standing desks, a kitchen stocked with LaCroix and cold brew, when our lawyer called with the news. I walked outside into the parking lot because I didn't want anyone to see my hands shaking. I called my mom from the car. She picked up on the second ring, the way she always did, like she'd been waiting. "It closed," I said. "The raise. 38 million. There was a pause. I could hear the television in the background, one of those daytime judge shows she liked to watch while she folded laundry. "Oh, honey," she said. "That's wonderful. I'm so proud of you. It's the biggest round we've done. The valuation, Mom, the company's worth $400 million now. On paper, that's a lot of money." "It is." Another pause. Then, quieter. "Are you eating enough? You sound tired." I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I'd lost weight. My eyes had that drawn look people get when they sleep 4 hours a night for months at a time. I'm fine, I said. Just busy. You need to take care of yourself, Thomas. Money's no good if you're not healthy. I know, Mom. I will. Promise me. I promise. I was lying. I knew I was lying. She probably knew too. But we both let it sit there between us, a small untruth that felt easier than the alternative. That night I stayed at the office until almost midnight, going through the cap table with our CFO, making sure every number was right. The equity distribution, the liquidation preferences, the vesting schedules. It all looked perfect on the spreadsheet. Clean lines, clear percentages, a future that made sense in cells and formulas. I drove home to my apartment in Mountain View, 1 bedroom, 1,600 square feet, hardwood floors I'd imagined hosting dinner parties on, but never had. I'd rented it 8 months earlier when the Series B closed, back when I thought I'd be buying a house by now. The rent was $3,400 a month, more than I'd ever paid for anything except college tuition. I sat on the couch in the dark and opened my laptop. The valuation news would hit TechCrunch tomorrow. Priya, my co-founder, had already drafted the blog post for our website. I read it twice, made one small edit, approved it. Then I opened the banking dashboard and stared at the numbers. $38 million. 18 months of runway. Maybe 20 if we were careful. Enough time to prove the model worked, to hit the metrics that would make the next raise easy. Or enough time to fail in a way everyone would see. I closed the laptop. My hands had stopped shaking. I felt calm. The way you feel after something big happens and your body doesn't know what to do with the adrenaline. I thought about calling someone, a friend, my college roommate, anyone. But it was late, and I didn't know what I'd say. I went to bed at 1:15. Set my alarm for 5:30. I had a product review meeting at 7 and an investor update call at 9. The work didn't stop just because the money came in. If anything, it got heavier. 43 people had just bet on me. I couldn't let them down. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed and watched the ceiling fan spin and thought about all the ways the math could break. By the summer of 2022, I was spending most of my time staring at dashboards. Revenue, active users, transaction volume, fraud rates, customer acquisition cost. We had dashboards for everything. Priya joked once that if we built a dashboard to track how much time we spent looking at dashboards, we'd never leave the office. She wasn't wrong. It was a Tuesday in early July when I realized we were in trouble. Real trouble, not the kind you can spin into a pivot or a learning opportunity. I was alone in the conference room, glass walls. Whiteboard covered in half-erased calculations from yesterday's planning meeting, going through the monthly financials with our CFO. A guy named David who'd come from a failed payment startup and knew how to read warning signs. For million, David said, tapping his pen against the printout. That's our monthly burn. If we don't change something, we've got 18 months of runway left. Maybe 16. I looked at the numbers. He was right. We were advancing wages to users at scale now. 200,000 transactions a month, growing 20% quarter over quarter, but every dollar we advanced cost us $1.10 to process and protect against fraud. The fraud was the killer. People using stolen identities, fake pay stubs, account takeovers. We'd built systems to catch most of it, but the sophisticated stuff still got through. And every dollar we lost to fraud came straight out of our runway. What if we raise prices? I said, we're already at the high end. Go higher, and we lose our competitive advantage. Users will go to the predatory lenders we're trying to replace. Cut features. Which ones? The instant advance is the whole product. I stared at the spreadsheet. The math was simple and brutal. We needed to be at 5 million users with a fraud rate under 2% to hit profitability. We were at 200,000 users with a fraud rate at 4.3%. The gap between here and there felt impossible. We need bridge funding, David said. Another 12 months of runway to hit the metrics for a Series D. Marcus isn't going to go for it. He's already in for 38 million. Then we find someone else. I nodded. I didn't believe it. Raising money when you're growing fast and the story's clean is easy. Raising money when your unit economics are underwater and you're asking for a bridge is like asking someone to bet on a losing hand. Investors can smell desperation. Priya knocked on the glass door and came in without waiting for an answer. She had 2 coffees from the place across the street, handed me one, sat down across from David. How bad? She said. 18 months if nothing changes, David said. She looked at me. We'd started this company together 3 years ago, back when it was just an idea and a slide deck. She'd been the one to push me to actually build it, to stop talking about disrupting the payday loan industry and just do it. She was the better engineer, the better manager, the one people actually wanted to work for. I was the one who could pitch, who could walk into a room full of investors and make them believe. We can fix this, I said. We just need time. Time costs money, David said. I'll talk to Marcus. Maybe there's appetite for a bridge. Priya sipped her coffee and didn't say anything. That was her tell. When she went quiet, it meant she disagreed but didn't want to fight about it. I knew her well enough to read it. David left. Priya stayed. You look tired, she said. I'm fine. Thomas. I said I'm fine. She gave me that look, the one that said she knew I was lying but wasn't going to push. We'd had this conversation before. She'd ask if I was okay. I'd say yes. She'd let it drop. It was a pattern we'd fallen into somewhere around the Series B, when the work stopped feeling like building and started feeling like surviving. The truth was I hadn't slept at home in 4 days. I'd been sleeping on the couch in the common area, the one we'd bought for collaboration, a $12,000 sectional in charcoal gray that was supposed to make the office feel less corporate. It was surprisingly comfortable if you lay at the right angle. I'd been waking up at 5:30 before anyone else arrived and pretending I'd just gotten in early that I didn't tell Priya this. I didn't tell anyone. That afternoon, I emailed Marcus. Subject line, quick sync. I kept it light, casual, like I just wanted to catch up. He didn't respond for 3 days. When he finally replied, it was a 2-line message suggesting we regroup in Q4 to discuss follow-on funding. Q4 was 4 months away. I knew what that meant. It meant no doubt I sat at my desk and opened the banking dashboard again. $58,000 in the company account. 6 employees still on payroll. $4 million in monthly burn. The math was a countdown, and I was watching it tick. My phone buzzed. A text from my landlord, a guy named Don who'd been friendly when I signed the lease, back when he'd read the TechCrunch article about our Series B and thought I was a safe bet. Rent is 2 weeks late. Everything okay? I stared at the message. Rent was $3,400. I had $4,000 in my personal account. I'd been paying myself in stock options for 3 months, telling myself it was temporary, that I'd take a real salary again once we closed the next round. That I didn't text back. That night, I stayed until 10, then 11, then midnight. Priya had left at 7, David at 8, the engineer team at 9. I was alone in the office, sitting at my desk with the lights off, watching the city through the window. Mountain view at night, streetlights, office parks, the glow of screens in distant windows. Everyone working late, everyone grinding, everyone convinced they were building the thing that would finally make them matter. I pulled up the pitch deck on my laptop. The one we'd used to raise the Series C, slide 17. Total addressable market, $47 by 2025. Slide 23. Path to profitability, Q4 2023. I'd believed those slides when I made them. I'd stood in front of rooms full of smart people and convinced them to believe too. Now they just looked like promises I couldn't keep. I closed the laptop, pulled the blanket off the back of the couch, lay down in the dark, set my alarm for 5:30. Tomorrow I'd fix it. Tomorrow I'd find the answer. Tomorrow the math would work. I didn't believe it. But I didn't know what else to do. The layoffs happened on a Thursday in September. I'd been dreading it for 2 weeks, ever since David ran the numbers and told me we didn't have a choice. 30 people had to go. 30 out of 70. Almost half the company. We did it in the big conference room, the one with the long table and the leather chairs we'd bought when we still thought we were going to be huge. I stood at the head of the table. Priya sat to my right, David to my left. The 30 people we were letting go filled the rest of the seats. Some of them had been with us since the beginning. Some had joined 6 months ago, back when we were still hiring, still growing, still pretending everything was fine. I'd rehearsed what I was going to say. I'd written it down, revised it, practiced it in the mirror that morning while I brushed my teeth in the office bathroom. I wanted to sound honest, but not defeated. Apologetic, but not weak. Like a leader who'd made a hard choice, not a founder who'd run out of options. Thank you all for being here. I started. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. The company is going through a strategic reset, and as part of that reset, we're making the difficult decision to reduce our team size. This isn't about performance. Everyone in this room has done excellent work. This is about runway, about making sure we have enough capital to reach our next milestone. I kept talking. I used phrases like aligning resources and path to sustainability. I said we were offering 2 weeks of severance and extended health coverage. I said we provide references and help with job searches. I said I was sorry. Kelly raised her hand. She was an engineer, maybe 30 years old, one of the best on the team. She'd left Google to join us 8 months ago because she believed in what we were building. Are the rest of us safe? She asked. The room went quiet. Everyone was looking at me. Yes, I said. The remaining team is secure. We've done the math. This reset gives us the runway we need. I believed it when I said it. Or I wanted to believe it. Or maybe I just needed them to believe it so they wouldn't all quit at once and leave me with nothing. Kelly nodded. She didn't look convinced. The meeting lasted 20 minutes. People asked questions about severance timing, about equity vesting, about whether their health insurance would cover the rest of the month. David answered most of them. I just stood there and tried to look like I was in control. Afterward, people filed out quietly. A few stopped to shake my hand. One guy, a junior product manager named Amit, told me he understood and wished me luck. I thanked him and felt like a fraud. When the room was empty, I sat down in one of the leather chairs and put my head in my hands. Priya stayed. She always stayed. You okay? She said. No, you did the right thing. Did I? She didn't answer. We sat there in silence for a while. Through the glass walls, I could see the rest of the team at their desks, pretending to work, probably updating their LinkedIn profiles and reaching out to recruiters. That night, I went home for the first time in almost a week. My apartment felt strange, like a place I used to live but didn't anymore. There were dishes in the sink from the last time I'd been here. Mail piled up on the counter. The air smelled stale that I sat on the couch and turned on my phone. Texts from the people we'd laid off. Some angry, some understanding, some just asking about logistics. When would they get their last paycheck? How did Cobra work? Could I write them a recommendation on LinkedIn? I didn't reply to any of them. My bank account for $1,200. Rent, $3,400, now 3 weeks late. I opened my email and saw 2 more messages from Don, my landlord. The subject line said it all: urgent, rent payment, and need to discuss next steps. I closed my email without reading them. My phone rang. My mom. I let it go to voicemail. She called again 5 minutes later. I answered. Hi, Mom. Thomas, hi. I've been trying to reach you. I know. Sorry. It's been crazy at work. I heard about the layoffs. Diane's son works at a startup in San Jose, and he said something about it. Are you okay? I should have known. Riverside was small enough that news traveled fast, especially news about someone who'd supposedly made it big. I'm fine, I said. It's just part of the business. We're restructuring. That sounds hard. It is, but it's the right move. We're positioning ourselves for the next phase. I hated how I sounded. Like I was pitching her. Like she was an investor I needed to keep calm. Where are you living these days? She asked. You never gave me your new address. Same place. Mountain View. You should come visit. It's been months. I will. Soon. Once things settle down. Promise. Promise. Another lie. They were getting easier. We talked for a few more minutes. She told me about her book club, about the neighbor's dog, about small things that didn't matter. I made the right sounds, asked the right questions, pretended I was listening. When we hung up, I sat in the dark and thought about the 30 people I'd fired that day. Some of them had kids. Some had mortgages. Some had moved across the country to work for us because they believed in the mission, the vision, the story I'd told them about changing the world. And I'd just told them we didn't have enough money to keep them. I looked around my apartment. 1,600 square feet I couldn't afford. A lease I couldn't break. A life I'd built on the assumption that the company would work, that the math would eventually make sense, that belief and hard work were enough. My hands were shaking. I opened my laptop and pulled up the banking dashboard. The company had $58,000. Payroll for the remaining 40 employees was $90,000 a month. We had 3 weeks. I closed the laptop and went to bed. I didn't set an alarm. I just lay there in the dark and listened to the sound of my own breathing and tried to figure out what I was going to do next. Tomorrow. I'd figure it out tomorrow. But deep down, I already knew. The math didn't work. It had never worked. And no amount of belief was going to change that. October and November blurred together into a single exhausted routine. I was at the office by 5:30 every morning, back when the building was still dark and the parking lot was empty except for my car. I'd make coffee in the kitchen, open my laptop, and stare at the numbers until someone else arrived. The numbers never changed. We were burning through cash faster than I could find new sources. Marcus had stopped responding to my emails entirely. The other investors sent polite brush-offs. Let's reconnect in Q1. Not the right time for our fund. Wishing you all the best. I stopped going home. Not all at once, but gradually. One night, I'd work late and sleep on the couch. Then 2 nights. Then 3. Pretty soon, I was only going to the apartment once a week to grab clean clothes and check the mail I wasn't opening. Priya noticed, but didn't say anything at first. She'd arrive at 7 and find me already in meetings, coffee cup in hand, looking like I'd been there for hours. Because I had been. I told her I was maximizing productivity. She gave me that look that said she knew better. The rent notices kept coming. Don called 6 times in 2 weeks. I let every call go to voicemail. November's rent was due, and I hadn't paid October. The math was simple. If I paid my rent, I'd have almost nothing left. If I didn't pay, I could keep the company alive for another week. Maybe 2. I chose the company. My hands started shaking whenever I opened the banking app. Not a tremor, exactly, but a fine vibration that made it hard to type my password. I'd close my eyes, take a breath, try again. Sometimes it took 3 attempts. I showered at the 24-hour fitness down the street. $10 each time. I'd bought a month-long membership back in August when I still thought I'd use it to actually work out. Now I just went for the showers in the bathroom where I could brush my teeth without anyone watching. I ate 1 meal a day, usually whatever was left in the office kitchen. String cheese. Protein bars. Sometimes someone would order lunch for a meeting and there'd be leftovers, sandwiches, salad, chips. I'd eat standing up at the counter, quickly, before anyone saw. Marcus finally took my call in late November. I'd been trying for 3 weeks. "Hey, Thomas," he said. His voice was friendly but distant, the tone you use with someone you're about to disappoint. "Sorry it's taken me so long to get back to you." "No problem," I said. "I know you're busy. What can I do for you?" I'd rehearsed this. I had bullet points written on a notepad in front of me. 3 reasons why a bridge round made sense. 5 data points showing our progress. 2 comparable companies that had raised in similar situations. None of it mattered. "We're looking at runway," I said. "We've got about 12 months left at our current burn. I wanted to see if there was appetite for a bridge that could get us to Series D metrics." Silence. Not the good kind where someone's thinking. The bad kind where they're deciding how to say no. "I think we should regroup in Q1, Marcus said. "See where the metrics are then. My family's pretty stretched right now across portfolio companies." Q1 was 2 months away. We'd be out of money by then. "Sure," I said. "That makes sense." We talked for another minute about nothing. The weather, the holidays coming up, some article he'd read about fintech regulation. Then he had to jump on another call. I sat in my car in the gym parking lot after and cried for the first time since my dad's funeral. Just sat there with my hands on the steering wheel and let it happen. 10 minutes, maybe 15. Nobody saw. When I was done, I wiped my face with my sleeve and drove back to the office. There was work to do. There was always work to do. That night, I slept on the couch and dreamed about numbers that wouldn't add up. The eviction notice was taped to my apartment door on a Tuesday in February. Bright yellow paper, official letterhead, 72 hours to vacate the premises. I stood in the hallway and read it twice. The words didn't change. I'd missed 3 months of rent. December, January, and most of November. $10,200. My personal account had $4,000. The company account had $58,000 and 6 employees still on payroll who needed to get paid in 9 days. The math was simple. I couldn't pay both. I unlocked the door and went inside. The apartment smelled closed up, stale. I hadn't been here in almost 2 weeks. There was a stack of mail on the floor where it had fallen through the slot. More notices, probably. I didn't open them. I started packing. Not everything, just what would fit in the Tesla. Clothes, laptop, chargers. A framed photo of my parents from my college graduation, back when my dad was still alive and I still thought I knew what I was doing. I left the furniture, the kitchen stuff, the TV I'd bought on sale at Best Buy. None of it mattered. IT took 40 minutes. I made 3 trips to the car, loading the trunk and the back seat. On the last trip, I stood in the empty apartment and looked around. 1,600 square feet of hardwood floors and high ceilings and recessed lighting. The place I'd thought I'd live in for a year, maybe two, before I bought something bigger. My phone rang. Don, the landlord. I answered this time. Thomas, he said. He sounded tired. Did you get the notice? Yeah, I got it. I'm sorry, man. I really am. But I've got a mortgage. Property taxes. I can't carry someone for 3 months. I know. I'm not asking you to. You were a good tenant. I liked having you here. When you signed the lease and I saw that TechCrunch article, I thought, this guy's going places. I almost laughed. Yeah, well, you need the full 3 days, or can you be out sooner? I can be out today. Okay, just leave the keys on the counter when you go. We hung up. I put the keys on the counter next to the sink where 3 months of dishes were still sitting. Then I walked out and closed the door behind me. At the office, Priya was at her desk. She looked up when I came in. You're here early, she said. Couldn't sleep. Figured I'd get a jump on the day. She nodded, but her eyes said she didn't believe me. I went to my desk and opened my laptop and pretended to work. An hour later, she came over with 2 coffees from the place across the street. She always got me the same thing. Oat milk latte, no sugar. I'm moving to a cheaper place, I said, not looking at her, looking at the screen, extending my personal runway. Okay, she said, just that. Okay, but I heard the question underneath it, the one she was too kind to ask out loud. That night, I parked outside the office and ran an extension cord through the back window of the Tesla, plugged in my phone and laptop. The car had enough charge to run the climate control for a few hours before the battery died. I set it to 68 degrees and reclined the seat. This was temporary, just until I figured something out. Maybe a week, maybe 2. I lasted 3. Living in the Tesla required a system. I figured it out fast because I didn't have a choice. Nights, park at the office, run the extension cord, charge everything. The building was empty after 10. Nobody saw. Mornings, move before 6:30, before anyone arrived. Days, rotate between parking lots. The Walmart in Milpitas didn't patrol until midnight. The rest stop off 101 had truckers, but they left me alone. I learned which lots had bathrooms that didn't require a key. Showers, 24-hour fitness, $10 each. I went every other day. On the off days, I used baby wipes and dry shampoo I bought at Walgreens. Laundry, coin op on El Camino, once a week, $8 including detergent. I kept my work clothes in a garment bag in the back seat. Business casual, button-downs, khakis, 1 blazer. I'd change in the gym locker room before going to the office. Nobody could tell. That was important. Looking like everything was fine. Food, whatever was in the office kitchen. Protein bars, string cheese, apples. Sometimes there'd be leftovers from meetings. I ate fast, standing up, before anyone noticed how much I was taking. I thought I was being careful. I thought nobody knew. Priya found out on a Tuesday morning in late February. I was at the office sink at 6 a.m., brushing my teeth. The bathroom door was open because I thought I was alone. I wasn't. She just stood there in the doorway holding 2 coffees. Staring, not saying anything. I spit into the sink. Rinsed. Wiped my mouth with a paper towel. The silence stretched out so long it started to hurt. How long? She finally said. 3 weeks. Jesus, Thomas. It's temporary. Where are you sleeping? My car. She set the coffees down on the counter, closed her eyes, took a breath like she was trying very hard not to yell. You should have told me, she said. I'm handling it. You're living in your fucking car. It's temporary, I said again. Like saying it enough times would make it true. Stay with us. We have a couch. My husband won't mind. I'm fine. You're not fine. Priya, please. Just stay with us. Even for a few days. I couldn't look at her. I looked at the sink, at the mirror, at the paper towel dispenser. Anywhere but her face. I appreciate it, I said, but I've got it figured out. That was a lie. I didn't have anything figured out. But I couldn't let her see how completely I'd failed. I was supposed to be the one with answers, the one who made the hard calls, the leader, not the guy sleeping in his car and stealing protein bars from the break room. She picked up the coffees and handed me one. We stood there not talking while I drank it. It was still hot. She'd probably stopped at the coffee place on her way in, like she did every morning, because she was thoughtful and kind and a better person than I'd ever be. If you change your mind, she said. I know. Thank you. She left. I finished brushing my teeth and went to my desk and opened my laptop. The banking dashboard loaded. $53,000. Payroll in 6 days. We were running out of time. That night, I didn't park at the office. I drove to the rest stop off 101 and found a spot between two semis. The truckers had their engines running, a low diesel rumble that never stopped. I reclined the seat and tried to sleep. My phone buzzed. An email notification. Subject line: Board meeting, Monday 9 a.m. For days away. I'd have to present our path to profitability. I'd have to stand in a room and explain how we were going to make this work. I didn't have an explanation. I closed my eyes and listened to the trucks and tried not to think about Monday. The board meeting lasted 32 minutes. I'd prepared for hours, new projections, revised burn rate, 3 different scenarios for extending runway. None of it mattered. Marcus attended via video. His face on the big screen was neutral, carefully blank. Sarah Walcott was there in person, a partner from the Series B fund. She wore a gray blazer and had her laptop open, taking notes. Priya sat next to me. She'd insisted on coming even though co-founders didn't usually attend board meetings. I was glad she was there. I walked them through the slides. Revenue was up 12% month over month. Active users growing. Fraud rate slowly improving. But the burn rate was still too high, and the path to profitability required either a significant price increase or user growth we couldn't afford to acquire. What about strategic alternatives? Sarah said, not unkindly, just matter of fact. That's what investors say when they mean, this isn't working, let's find someone to buy you. We've had some preliminary conversations, I said. 2 companies have expressed interest. One in the payroll space, one that does earned wage access for shift workers. What stage are those conversations? Early. Exploratory. Sarah nodded and made a note. Marcus's face on the screen didn't change. I think we should explore those more seriously, Sarah said. See if there's a fit. Marcus unmuted. I agree. Thomas, I appreciate everything you've built here. But the reality is we need to think about outcomes that work for everyone. Employees, investors, the mission. The mission. That was code for, we're done. I understand. I said. Priya spoke for the first time. What's the timeline? 6 weeks, Sarah said. Let's see if we can get to term sheets. If not, we'll need to discuss other options. Other options meant shutting down entirely. After the meeting, Sarah pulled me aside in the hallway. Her expression was kind but firm, the way a doctor looks when they're delivering bad news. You did the best you could, she said. Sometimes the market timing isn't right. Sometimes the unit economics just don't work. Yeah, this isn't a reflection on you as a founder. You built something real. You got further than most people ever do. I nodded because I didn't trust my voice. She put her hand on my shoulder, a brief touch, then walked away. I stood in the hallway and watched her go. Through the glass walls, I could see the team at their desks. 40 people who still thought we were building something. Priya found me 10 minutes later. I was sitting on the floor in the stairwell with my back against the wall. Hey, she said. Hey, you okay? No. She sat down next to me. We didn't talk for a while. The stairwell was cold and smelled like concrete. Somewhere above us, a door opened and closed. We always knew this might happen, she said finally. Doesn't make it easier. No, I'm sorry, I said. I know you put just as much into this as I did. We both did. But it was my idea. I'm the one who convinced you to quit your job at Google. I'm the one who told everyone this would work. Thomas, I was wrong. She didn't argue. There wasn't anything to argue about. The numbers were the numbers. That afternoon, we sat in my office. Actually, it was a conference room, but I claimed it as mine 6 months ago and started making lists. Companies that might be interested in acquiring us. Contacts who might know someone. A timeline for winding down if the acquisition talks fell through. It felt like planning a funeral. 6 weeks, Priya said, staring at her laptop. That's not much time. No, what happens to everyone? Severance if we can afford it. References. I'll help however I can. And us. I didn't have an answer for that. My phone buzzed. An email from the VP of engineering at one of the companies we'd been talking to. Subject line, following up. I opened it. He wanted to schedule a call. He'd heard we might be open to strategic discussions. He thought there could be a good fit. We've got interest, I said, turning the phone so Priya could see. She read the email. That's good. Yeah, but it didn't feel good. It felt like surrender. The company officially shut down on April 19th. A Tuesday. I signed the papers in a conference room at our lawyer's office in downtown Palo Alto. White walls, glass table, Leather chairs that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. The acqui-hire had gone through. A mid-sized payments company bought our technology and our team for enough to cover severance and a small payout to the preferred investors. Marcus's family office got most of their money back. The common stockholders, me, Priya, and the 43 employees who'd taken equity instead of higher salaries, got nothing. That I signed everywhere the lawyer pointed. My hand was steady. I thought it would shake, but it didn't. Maybe I was too tired to shake. That's everything, the lawyer said. She was young, maybe 30, wearing a suit that fit perfectly. She smiled like she'd done this 100 times. She probably had. I'll file these with the state. You should get confirmation within a week. Okay. And the acquiring company's VP of engineering asked me to pass along his contact information. He said to reach out if you're interested in discussing roles on their team. She handed me a business card. I put it in my pocket without looking at it. Thanks. Outside, the sun was too bright. I stood on the sidewalk and squinted at the traffic. Palo Alto on a Tuesday afternoon, Teslas and Range Rovers, people in athleisure carrying green juices, Stanford students on bikes. Everyone moving with purpose. Everyone going somewhere that mattered. That I got in my car and drove. No destination. Just drove. Sunnyvale to Milpitas to San Jose and back. The Tesla's battery was at 40%. I needed to charge it, but I didn't want to stop moving. My phone rang at 3:15. My mom. I let it go to voicemail. She called again 5 minutes later. And again. On the fourth call I answered. Hi, Mom. Thomas. Her voice had that edge it got when she was trying not to panic. I've been calling you. I know. Sorry. It's been a busy day. Diane told me the company closed. Is that true? Diane was her friend from book club. Her son worked at a startup in San Jose. News traveled fast in small networks. Yeah, I said. We sold the technology to another company. It's called an acqui-hire. Are you okay? I'm fine. Where are you living? That was the question I'd been avoiding. I'm figuring that out, I said. Thomas. It's temporary. I'm between places. I'll find something soon. Silence. The kind that meant she knew I was lying. You should come home, she said. Mom, just for a little while. Until you figure things out. The house is empty. Your room is still here. I was sitting in a Safeway parking lot in Sunnyvale. Through the windshield, I could see people going in and out with grocery bags. Normal people with normal lives. Jobs and homes and dinner plans that I was calculating whether I could afford the $10 shower at the gym or if I should just use the sink in the Safeway bathroom. I'll think about it, I said. Promise me. I promise. We talked for another few minutes. She told me about her garden, about the neighbor's new puppy, about small, ordinary things. I made the right sounds. When we hung up, I sat in the car and stared at the steering wheel. I had $1,800 in my bank account. No job, no apartment, no plan. The business card from the VP of engineering was still in my pocket. I took it out and looked at it. His name was printed in clean sans serif font. Title underneath. Email and phone number. I couldn't do it. I couldn't imagine walking into another office and pretending I knew what I was doing. Pretending the last 3 years hadn't happened. Pretending I was the kind of person who deserved a second chance. That I put the card back in my pocket. That night I parked at the rest stop off 101. Truckers on both sides, engines rumbling. I reclined the seat and closed my eyes but didn't sleep. Just lay there thinking about the signature I'd put on the shutdown papers. How easy it had been. How final. I told my mom I'd think about coming home. Then I spent 3 more weeks sleeping in my car. It wasn't a decision exactly. More like inertia. Every morning I'd wake up and think, today I'll figure something out. And then the day would pass, and I wouldn't. I kept moving between parking lots. Walmart, rest stop, gym, back to Walmart. The Tesla's air conditioning broke during the first heat wave in May. The repair estimate was $2,400. I didn't have it, so I drove with the windows down and sweated through my shirts. I applied for jobs. Product manager roles, startup advisor positions, fractional CTO gigs. My resume was the problem. Founded and scaled fintech platform to $420 million valuation. Looked impressive until you read the next line. Company acquired in strategic transaction. Everyone knew what that meant. I got 3 interviews. A Series A startup in San Francisco. A growth stage company in Mountain View. A consultancy that helped enterprise companies with digital transformation. The interviews followed the same pattern. They'd ask about my experience. I'd walk them through building the company, The rounds we raised, the metrics we hit. Then they'd pause, and I'd see the question coming before they asked it. What did you learn from the experience? I had a good answer. I'd practiced it. Something about market timing and unit economics and the importance of sustainable growth over hypergrowth. I'd say it earnestly, like I'd really learned something, like failure had made me wiser. They'd nod. Take notes. Thank me for my time. I never got called back. Night, I researched bankruptcy attorneys, credit repair services, debt consolidation programs. I read articles about financial recovery after startup failure. Most of them were useless, written by people who'd never actually failed, who thought resilience was a strategy instead of just survival. I had $1,200 left. One night in early June, I was parked at the Milpitas Walmart when the math finally broke through the denial. It was 94 degrees. The windows were down. I was sweating through my last clean shirt. My phone showed 47 unread emails. I opened the inbox. Automated rejections, mostly. Thank you for your interest. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. We'll keep your resume on file. One email from Marcus, sent 3 days ago. I'd been ignoring it. Subject line, checking in. I didn't open it. Instead, I opened my Maps app and typed in my mom's address. Riverside, California. 5 hours and 12 minutes south. I'd driven that route 100 times. College breaks, holidays, quick visits when I was still trying to prove I'd made it. I didn't decide to go. I just started driving. Windows down because the AC was broken. Hot air whipping through the car. The 101 to the 152 to the 5. Farm country and then desert, and then the sprawl of inland Southern California. Somewhere around Bakersfield, I realized I wasn't going back. Whatever I'd been trying to hold on to in the Bay Area, the idea that I could fix this, that I could land on my feet, that I was still the person who'd raised $43 million. It was gone. I pulled into my mom's driveway at 9:30. The porch light was on. Through the front window, I could see the living room, the couch I'd sat on 1,000 times, the bookshelf my dad built before he died. I sat in the car for 5 minutes. 10. Trying to figure out what I was going to say, the front door opened. My mom stepped out onto the porch. She was smaller than I remembered. Older. She just stood there looking at the car. I got out. We stared at each other across the driveway. Then she walked down the steps and pulled me into a hug that lasted long enough to make me cry. Not just tears, actual crying, the kind that comes from someplace deep. I put my face against her shoulder and let it happen. She didn't say anything. Just held on. My mom didn't ask questions. That first night, she just showed me to my old room. Same bed, same desk, same stupid posters of bands I'd liked in high school. I'd taken them down when I left for college. She'd put them back up. I made dinner, she said. If you're hungry. I was. I hadn't eaten since yesterday. We sat at the kitchen table. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans. The meal she used to make when I came home from Stanford. She served me a plate and didn't comment on how fast I ate. She talked about small things. Her book club was reading some historical fiction set in World War II. The neighbor's golden retriever had puppies. She'd renewed her Costco membership. Normal things. Safe things. I didn't say anything about the company. She didn't ask. After dinner, I helped with the dishes. My hands remembered the routine. She washed, I dried. Everything went in specific cabinets. We'd done this 1,000 times when I was growing up. The basement's empty if you want more privacy, she said, drying her hands on a dish towel. Your old room is fine, but I thought you might want your own space. The basement, where I used to practice guitar badly and play video games and hide when I wanted to be alone. Thanks, I said. The basement would be good. That night, I moved my stuff downstairs. It didn't take long. Everything I owned fit in 3 duffel bags. I set up a workspace on the folding table that was already down there. Laptop, charger, phone. The basics. Then I sat on the old couch and looked around. Concrete walls, small windows near the ceiling, fluorescent lights that hummed when you turned them on. It smelled like storage and old carpet. This was my life now. 37 years old, living in my mom's basement. I opened my laptop. The email from Marcus was still unread. I clicked it. Hey Thomas, heard you're doing consulting work these days. Would love to grab coffee next time I'm in LA and catch up. I'm exploring some ideas in the fintech space and would value your perspective. Let me know if you're free. I read it 3 times, trying to figure out if it was real or just networking maintenance. Marcus keeping the relationship warm in case I became useful again. I started typing a response. Deleted it. Started again. Deleted again. My mom knocked on the basement door. Thomas? I'm making tea. Do you want some? Yeah, I said. I'll be up in a minute. I closed the laptop without sending anything. Upstairs, she had 2 cups of chamomile tea on the kitchen table. We sat across from each other and drank in silence. She didn't ask what I'd been doing on the computer. Didn't ask about my plans. Just sat with me. I'm glad you're home, she said finally. Thanks for letting me stay. This is your home. It's always been your home. I nodded because I didn't trust my voice. She kissed my forehead before going to bed. Like I was still 17, I went back downstairs and lay on the couch in the dark. Above me, I could hear her moving around. Water running. Floorboards creaking. The house settling. My phone buzzed. A LinkedIn message from someone I didn't know. Subject line: Startup post-mortem interview request. I turned off the phone and closed my eyes. Tomorrow I'd figure out what came next. Tomorrow I'd make a plan. But tonight, I was just here. In my mom's basement. Safe. I woke up the next morning to sunlight coming through the basement windows. Thin strips of light across the concrete floor. For a moment I forgot where I was. Then I remembered. My mom was already up. I could smell coffee. When I went upstairs, she was at the kitchen table reading the newspaper. Actual paper, folded in half, reading glasses perched on her nose. Morning, she said. There's coffee. I poured myself a cup and sat across from her. We didn't talk. Just sat there while she read, and I stared at my phone. No new emails. No messages. Nothing that required a response. What are your plans today? She asked. I need to start looking for work. Real work. She nodded. Didn't ask what kind of work or whether I had any leads. Just accepted it. I spent the morning applying for freelance gigs on Upwork. UX design projects, product strategy consulting, anything that paid. The rates were low, $50 an hour, sometimes less. Nothing like what I used to make. But I needed something. My first project came through that afternoon. $300 to redesign the appointment booking flow for a dental office in Phoenix. 4 days of work, maybe 5. I accepted it immediately. Around 3, I went upstairs to stretch my legs. My mom was in the kitchen making iced tea. Can I help with anything? I said. The lawn needs mowing. If you want. I hadn't mowed a lawn in years. But I went out and did it anyway. The mower was old. The kind you had to pull start 3 times before it caught. The grass was high. It took 40 minutes. When I came back inside, sweating through my shirt, my mom handed me a glass of iced tea. Thank you, she said. It's just mowing. Still, thank you. That night I sat in the basement and worked on the dental office project. The design was simple but tedious. I made wireframes, tested user flows, wrote documentation. At midnight, I was still working. My mom knocked on the door. Thomas? It's late. I know. Almost done. Get some sleep. It'll be there tomorrow. She was right. But I couldn't stop. I needed to finish. Needed to prove I could still do something. I worked until 2 and fell asleep on the couch with my laptop open. July settled into a routine. Wake up at 7. Coffee with my mom. Work on freelance projects until noon. Break for lunch. Usually something she made, leftovers or sandwiches. More work until 5 or 6. Help around the house. Dinner together. Tea at 10. The freelance money came slowly. 300 here, 200 there. I managed to scrape together enough to cover my phone bill and gas. My mom wouldn't take rent money. I offered twice. She waved me off both times. Save it, she said. You'll need it when you're ready to get your own place. I didn't tell her I had $800 to my name. The basement became mine. I set up the folding table as a proper desk, organized my cables, put up a cheap lamp I bought at Target. It wasn't much, but it was something. A space that felt like work, even if the work was just redesigning websites for small businesses that couldn't afford real agencies. One afternoon, I ran into Jake Morrison at the Stater Brothers. I was in the produce section, trying to decide if I could justify buying the good apples or if I should stick with the cheap ones. I looked up and there he was, pushing a cart, wearing a work shirt with a company logo I didn't recognize. He did a double take. Thomas? Holy shit, man. Hey, Jake. We stood there awkwardly while people moved around us reaching for lettuce and tomatoes. You back in town? He said. Yeah, for a bit. Cool, cool. How long's it been? 10 years. Something like that. We should catch up. You still got the same number. I nodded. We exchanged phones, put in each other's contacts. Made vague promises about grabbing a beer soon. Then he moved on toward the meat section, and I went back to staring at apples. I bought the cheap ones. That night my mom mentioned her book club was meeting Thursday. You could come, she said, if you want to get out of the house. Book club, it's just a few friends. We read and talk and eat too many cookies. Very low-key. I started to say no. Then I thought about another night in the basement, another evening staring at Upwork listings. Sure, I said. Why not? She smiled. The kind of smile that made me realize how worried she'd been. Book club was at Deborah's house on Thursday night. 7 women in their 60s, all retired teachers or nurses, sitting in a living room that smelled like vanilla candles and coffee. Plus me. They were reading Where the Crawdads Sing. I hadn't read it. My mom told me not to worry, that half of them hadn't finished it either. The women were kind. They asked polite questions about what I was doing, where I'd been, what brought me back to Riverside. I kept my answers vague. Consulting. Tech stuff. Taking some time to regroup, that a woman named Patricia mentioned her son also worked in tech. Something about cloud security. She seemed proud when she said it, like it was an accomplishment just to work in the industry. You two should connect, she said. He's always looking to network. Sure, I said. Knowing I wouldn't, they talked about the book. About the main character's isolation, her resilience, whether the ending was satisfying. I half listened. Mostly I just ate cookies and tried not to feel like a charity case. On the drive home my mom was quiet. Thank you for coming, she said finally. It was fine. They liked you. I didn't know what to say to that. They'd been polite. That wasn't the same as liking me. The next week I ran into Mrs. Chun at the grocery store. She'd been my 10th grade math teacher. I recognized her immediately even though she was older, grayer, smaller than I remembered. Thomas Hensley, she said. My goodness. How are you? Good. I'm good. What are you working on these days? I'm between things. Doing some consulting while I figure out my next move. She smiled. Not a regular smile. The kind people give when they're being gracious about something sad. Well, it's good to see you, she said. Take care of yourself. I bought oranges and drove home and sat in the driveway for 20 minutes before I could go inside. Not crying. Just sitting there with the engine off, staring at the steering wheel. Everyone in this town knew. They all knew I'd failed. That Marcus's email sat in my inbox for a week before I opened it again. I'd read it that first night, then ignored it. Then thought about it at random times, in the shower, while mowing the lawn, late at night when I couldn't sleep. Would love to grab coffee next time I'm in LA and catch up. I didn't know what he wanted. Maybe nothing. Maybe just to keep the connection alive in case I became useful again. Maybe he felt guilty about how things ended, and this was his way of making peace. That I opened my laptop and started typing a response. First draft. Angry. Called him out for pulling funding, for taking his liquidation preference while everyone else got nothing, for disappearing when things got hard. I wrote 3 paragraphs. Deleted all of it. Second draft. Professional. Thanked him for reaching out, politely declined the coffee, wished him well with his new investments. I got halfway through and stopped. It felt hollow. Third draft. Honest. Said I wasn't ready to talk about fintech yet, that I needed more time to process what happened. But I appreciated him thinking of me. I hovered my cursor over the send button for 10 minutes. Then I closed the laptop without sending anything. I walked upstairs to my old bedroom, the one I'd slept in from age 8 to 18. Same carpet, same window, same desk where I'd done homework and applied to colleges and dreamed about getting out. The window faced east. Morning light came through the blinds and stripes across the floor. The same pattern I used to watch while my alarm went off for school. I stood there looking at those stripes and felt the weight of 20 years folding back on itself. My mom called up from downstairs. Thomas, dinner's ready. Spaghetti and garlic bread. The same meal she'd made the night before I left for Stanford. I went downstairs and we ate. She told me about her day, something funny that happened at the grocery store, a phone call with her sister in Phoenix. Normal things. Small things. I didn't mention Marcus's email. After dinner we had tea at the kitchen table. She kissed my forehead before going to bed, like I was still 17. I let her. Jake texted me on a Friday afternoon. Hey man, grabbing drinks with some guys from Wilson High tonight. You in? I almost said no. Then I thought about another night in the basement, another evening alone with my laptop and my thoughts. Sure. Where? He sent me the address. A sports bar in downtown Riverside. 7 o'clock. I showed up at 7:15. Jake was already there with 3 other guys I vaguely recognized. Mike Sullivan, Derek Barnes, Ryan Torres. We'd all been in the same graduating class. They looked older but the same. Mike had gained weight. Derek had less hair. Ryan wore glasses now. They all had wedding rings. Thomas. Jake stood up and clapped me on the shoulder. Guys, you remember Thomas Hensley. We shook hands. Made small talk about how long it had been, how weird it was that we all ended up back here. Mike sold insurance. Had 2 kids, 7 and 9. Derek worked for the county doing something with permits. Just bought a house. Ryan managed a Target and coached his daughter's soccer team. They talked about high school football, about teachers who'd retired, about classmates who'd moved away or died or gotten divorced. I listened and drank my beer and tried to remember what it felt like to be 17 and think these guys were my whole world. Someone mentioned my startup. Mike, I think. I saw something on LinkedIn a while back. You raised like a ton of money, right? Yeah. We built a fintech platform. It didn't work out. I'm doing consulting now. They nodded. Nobody pushed for details. Nobody made it into a thing. The conversation moved on. Kids, mortgages, weekend plans. Normal life stuff. At the end of the night. Mike grabbed the check before I could reach for it. I got it, he said. No, let me. Next one's on you when you're back on your feet. The way he said it, kind but pitying. Like I was a project, not a person that I drove home feeling both comforted and patronized. They'd been nice. They'd treated me normally. But that phrase, when you're back on your feet, stuck in my head, like I'd fallen. Like I needed help getting up. I finally responded to Marcus on a Tuesday morning in late September. Not with any of the drafts I'd written. Just a simple reply. Thanks for reaching out. I'm not really ready to talk shop yet. Hope you're doing well. I hit send before I could second guess it. His response came an hour later. Totally understand. Doors always open when you are. That was it. No pressure. No follow-up questions. Just acknowledgement that I didn't know how to feel about it. That afternoon I worked on a UX project for an e-commerce startup in Austin. $600 to redesign their checkout flow. It was boring work, but it paid. I finished it in 3 days and invoiced immediately. My bank account was up to $2,000. Not much, but more than I'd had in months. That I was starting to think about next steps. Maybe save enough to get a studio apartment somewhere cheap. Maybe look for full-time work, something stable that didn't require me to pitch or fundraise or convince anyone I was worth betting on. My mom knocked on the basement door around 10. She said. Yeah, I'll be up in a minute. Upstairs, she had 2 cups ready on the kitchen table. Chamomile, the kind she'd been making since I was a kid. That we sat and drank in silence for a while. You seem better, she said. Better than what? Than when you first got here. I thought about that. The night I'd shown up in the driveway, crying in her arms. The first weeks in the basement, unable to sleep, unable to think about anything except the company and the failure and the 43 people who'd trusted me. Maybe, I said. You're eating more. Sleeping better. The tea helps. She smiled. Your father used to say that. When things were hard at work, he'd come home and I'd make tea and he'd sit right where you're sitting and tell me it helped. My dad died when I was 22. Heart attack. Sudden. No warning. I didn't talk about him much. It still hurt in a way that hadn't dulled. I miss him, I said. Me too. We finished our tea. She kissed my forehead before bed. I went back downstairs. My phone showed a notification. LinkedIn message. Someone asking if I'd be willing to do a phone interview about startup failures for their MBA thesis. That I deleted it without responding. October came and I was still in the basement. For months now. Long enough that it stopped feeling temporary and started feeling like just where I lived. I'd settled into the rhythm. Freelance work, small projects, enough to cover my expenses and save a little. Helping my mom around the house. Tea at night. Weekend errands to Home Depot or the grocery store. It wasn't the life I'd imagined. But it was a life. Jake invited me to another gathering. Same group. Mike, Derek, Ryan. Different bar, same conversations. They talked about their kids, their jobs, their plans for Thanksgiving. I told them about a project I was working on. Website redesign for a nonprofit in San Diego. For $100. They nodded like it was impressive, even though we all knew it wasn't. Nobody mentioned the startup. Nobody asked about my plans. They just treated me like I was part of the group again. Like I'd never left. At one point, Mike asked if I was seeing anyone. No, I said. Not really in a place for that right now. Fair enough. When you're ready, I know some people. I didn't want to be set up. Didn't want someone else's pity date. But I appreciated the offer. On the drive home, I thought about the last time I'd been on a date. 2 years ago, maybe longer. A woman I'd met at a tech conference. We'd gone to dinner in Palo Alto, talked about startups and product roadmaps and growth metrics. I'd paid with the corporate card. That life felt like someone else's memory now. To at home, my mom was still up, watching TV in the living room. Good time, she said. Yeah, good guys. I'm glad you're reconnecting. I sat down on the couch next to her. Some cooking show was on. People making elaborate desserts under time pressure. Do you think I should stay? I said. In Riverside, I mean. Long term. She muted the TV and looked at me. Is that what you want? I don't know what I want. Then maybe that's okay. Maybe you don't have to know yet. We watched the rest of the show in silence. People rushing around, stressing over fondant and ganache, making something beautiful out of basic ingredients. When it ended, I went downstairs, opened my laptop, looked at the job boards I'd been ignoring. Nothing looked right. Nothing felt possible. I closed the laptop and lay on the couch in the dark. My mom left for Phoenix on a Wednesday morning in late October. Going to visit her sister for a few days. Maybe a week. She'd been planning it for a month. You'll be okay here alone? She asked at the door, suitcase in hand. I'll be fine. There's food in the fridge. And I left money on the counter for groceries if you need anything. Mom, I don't need, just take it. Please. I took it. $20. I put it in my wallet and didn't argue. After she left, the house felt different. Quieter. Bigger. I worked on my projects, 2 active clients, both website redesigns. $600 total. I finished both by Friday. I mowed the front and back lawns. Fixed a loose handle on the kitchen cabinet. Reorganized the basement workspace. Small tasks that made me feel useful. Friday night, I made spaghetti using my mom's recipe. I'd watched her make it 100 times, but never tried it myself. It came out okay. Not perfect, but close. I ate it at the kitchen table with a book I'd been meaning to read. The house was completely silent. No TV upstairs. No footsteps. Just me. I washed the dishes. Made myself tea. Sat at the table and thought about everything that had led here. The pitch to Marcus. The Series C. The layoffs. The eviction. The Tesla with the broken AC. The office sync at 6 a.m. All of it felt far away now. Like it had happened to someone else. My phone buzzed. Text from my mom. Made it to Phoenix. How are things? Good. House is still standing. Did you eat dinner? Made spaghetti. Your recipe. How was it? Pretty good. Maybe needed more garlic. Everything needs more garlic. I smiled. Sent her a thumbs up emoji. That night, I lay on the basement couch and thought about Marcus's email. About the book club women and their polite questions. About Mrs. Chen's kind smile. About Mike paying my tab and Jake's invitation to drinks. I was 37 years old, living in my mom's basement, making $300 at a time redesigning websites. This was my life now. Not the bottom I'd feared. Not the redemption I'd hoped for. Just this. The particular shape my life had taken after everything else fell apart. My mom came home Sunday evening with a box of Arizona citrus and stories about her sister's new condo. I helped carry in her luggage. That night we had tea. She kissed my forehead before bed. Like I was still 17. I went downstairs and opened my laptop. Marcus's email was still there, unanswered in any meaningful way. I looked at it for a long time. Then I closed the laptop and turned off the light. Morning would come. The basement windows would fill with strips of sunlight across the concrete floor. I'd make coffee, work on whatever project came next, help around the house, have tea at night. Tea wasn't much, but it was enough. For now, it was enough.